There's no doubt in my mind that Kamala Harris being in a position as president and commander in chief would only further take everything we've experienced over these last 4 years and escalate it to a whole new level that would be hard for us to imagine today. I have no doubt in my mind that given her clear insecurity and weakness, she would try to exercise or present a position of strength by using our men and women in uniform and sending them into some new war in some other part of the world,
right,
to quote unquote show strength.
Hey folks, does the Democratic Party have your best interests at heart? I don't even think I need to ask you this question. If you just look at what's happening in our country, if you look at how the Biden administration has operated over the last 4 years, if you just watch how the establishment, some of those that claim to be Republican, are behaving, you'll say to yourself, something is fundamentally wrong with our country. The Democratic Party, those that have skewed this nation, abused our founding principles, in order to get what they want, in order to achieve more power, more position, to tell the American people who they can and can't vote for, because that's what's really happening here. Let's check this list. Equal justice under the law. No. President Biden is openly prosecuting his political opponents while criminal activity on the left, including by his own son, is given a pass. And it's not just given a pass by President Biden and the people working directly around him at the White House. His son has been given a pass by a bureaucracy that has been tainted over decades by people who act as operatives for the Democratic Party in the FBI and in the CIA and in the NSA and in the NSC. And we know this. Let's go to the next one on our list. Men in women's sports. How about that? Still a big no. It is obviously unscientific and unfair. That is a fact, but that facts don't matter. It doesn't matter anymore. In a world where everything is gray, where they lie to everyone in an attempt to control everyone. That's what they are doing. In an effort to take away what is truth and then take away our children, our communities, our family values, who we are as people, our belief in God, and make the government God. Right? Everything is gray. Everything is gray. It's okay because we're the government. We're going to say that if you believe you're a cat, we'll say, okay, you can be a cat as long as we are in charge, as long as we are the power. That is what this Democratic Party has become. It lies to you. It lies to your children. It lies to your family. It is not the Democrats of my father's past or my past. This is a new radicalized, progressive, Marxist-like, pseudo-fascist government that believes it needs to control every aspect of your life. And it has allies in Hollywood. It has allies in corporate America. It has allies across the board that want this as well. They want to globalize this. They want to take away your individual rights, the individual rights and principles that our founding fathers put in place. Let's go to another one on the checklist. America Last foreign policy. Remember when President Obama would say we're leading from behind? What a bunch of lies that is. What a horrible way to lead a nation. Remember when he went on the apology tour? The Biden administration is just an extension of that policy. It is the reason why the Biden administration is still begging and pleading with Iran. It is the reason why Iranian leadership was so emboldened. It is the reason why Vladimir Putin became so emboldened. It is the reason why our enemies and adversaries like North Korea and China feel as though they have the upper hand because of an America last foreign policy. How is leading from behind working out for us? It's not working out for us. You are the future of this nation, every single one of you. And I say this to you, whether you're sitting in your kitchen or you're taking your kids to school or you're at work every day, whether that's a factory or a law firm, every single one of you is a part of this beautiful nation. You're part of the fabric of what makes this nation so great. The envy of the world for as long as we can sustain it, for as long as we can fight for it. Every single one of you must play an active role in this country. And you need to realize that you are not alone. Whether you're a Democrat and you're questioning what your party is doing, it's okay. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do that. You have permission to walk away. You have permission to walk away from an abusive relationship, one that is destroying this nation. On every single issue, Democrats make your life worse right now. We can't even sit down and discuss policy because it's so out of control. There is no fundamental balance in our parties anymore to discuss policies, and our Constitution that makes this nation so great. The majority of Democrats, they don't even believe in it anymore. They don't even care. Freedom of speech, gun rights, antiquated. That's what they say. It's antiquated. They don't care about you. Because if they did, they wouldn't vote for these policies. Millions of Americans are waking up to that fact. And as recently as 2020, Tulsi Gabbard was running in the Democratic primary for president. She honestly believed that the Democratic Party was the best vehicle for change America needed. No longer. She doesn't believe that anymore. On today's show, we are discussing her journey away from the Democratic Party because it is very similar to the journey millions of you have already made away from the Democratic Party. Millions of you. It's an excellent conversation, and I can't wait to share it with you. But first, MyPillow, folks. When Mike Lindell first launched MyPillow, it was solely a solution for one problem: pillows. But with the dedication of his team, they've expanded their offerings to include hundreds of products. I love these products. I've got Macy May Buttercup underneath the desk, taking her nap like she always does on her MyPillow pet bed. And she absolutely loves it. So does Danny. So does Astro. So does Picolola. I've got a whole team of dogs that love these beds, and you will too. And right now, Mike Lindell is hosting a $25 extravaganza. It's going on right now. Listen to this current offer. Use promo code Carter, CARTER, at mypillow.com to get a sale price and free shipping on any order over $75. Go to mypillow.com or call 1-800-685-7221 to get in on the $25 extravaganza today. Be sure to use code Carter to get the sale price and free shipping on your order over $75. Call 1-800-685-7221 or go to mypillow.com, promo code Carter. Again, mypillow.com, promo code Carter. I'm so grateful and honored to have the four-term Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard here on the show with us today at the Sara Carter Show. You're the 2020 presidential candidate, a New York Times bestselling author. You're a veteran with 3 deployments to war zones in the Middle East and Africa. You've served in uniform for more than 2 decades, and you're currently a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve. I can't begin to tell you how much respect I have for you and for the service that you give to our country. And you're the author of a brand new book, which is what I'm excited about, For Love of Country, Leave the Democrat Party Behind. Thank you so much, Tulsi, for being on the Sara Carter Show.
Thank you. Thank you, Sara. It's great to see you. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to see you too. I haven't seen you in a while since we were just talking about running into each other right outside of Fox Studios in beautiful New York City.
Yes, exactly.
I know. I love your book. I was reading your book, and there was one part in particular. You're talking about South Carolina. And the reason I'm going to start here is because this was kind of the epicenter for me in 2016, 2017, when John Solomon and I started to break all the stories on what was happening at the FBI, what was happening internally with the Democrat Party. Hillary Clinton, we didn't even know back then, had paid all this money, to have this dossier, Christopher Steele's dodgy dossier, out there, this lie that permeated not just on the national media here, but across the globe. But there was a woman that walked up to you in the book. There was a Black woman, an African-American woman, who walked up to you, and she had this look in her eyes, and she was staring at you, and she just wanted to see your face and ask you one particular question. She said, are you working for the Russians? I mean, this was the biggest lie that spread globally, not just for you, but across. I mean, I heard the same thing with me. I heard the same thing with John Solomon. It was targeted attacks at President Donald Trump at the time. A lie that was spread not only by a political party, but it was assisted with the CIA, the FBI, a bureaucracy that has gone amok. Talk a little bit about that moment to me, what that was like for you, because it was such a powerful moment in your book.
Sara, when Hillary Clinton, and she wasn't the first, but she was certainly the most prominent Democrat to, wage this or levy this baseless, evidenceless smear against me, somehow accusing me of being some sort of Russian asset or traitor to the country that I love and that I'm willing to lay my life down for. It was almost laughable to me when I first heard it, because it was so bizarre.
Yeah.
And it was so out of left field. I was a sitting member of Congress at the time, serving on the Armed Services and Foreign Affairs committees, and, going into some of the highest level classification of briefings, and still wearing the uniform of our country. It was just so bizarre that I thought that it should be laughed off, but it wasn't. And as you pointed out, it was a smear that they used back then against anyone that they viewed as a threat, a political threat. And it's one that they continue to throw out to anyone who dares to challenge them, not only on foreign policy, but on domestic policy. And I realized over a very short period of time why they continue to do that is because it works. And in the book, as you mentioned, I share this story about a woman who was the leader of her county Democratic Party, and an extremely incredible woman, well-respected. We met in this small little a shack is probably an accurate term. It was a small little wooden building next to a barbecue joint in rural South Carolina. And it was a wonderful meeting. I got up and I, shared my words about why I was offering to serve as president to the small group that was gathered there, as I'm sure many other presidential candidates were at that time. But I could tell as this woman walked around the room, the respect that she commanded from her neighbors, her friends, her community. And she pulled me aside just before I was about to leave. And the look of concern in her eyes, she stared intently into mine, her tears almost welling up about the seriousness of this concern that was weighing heavily on her heart, and asking me that question. I need to know, are you really working for the Russians? And it stopped me in my tracks, because I could see in her eyes how much this possibility bothered her. And I was grateful that she asked me directly, and I was able to answer her directly about my love for our country, my service, and my willingness to sacrifice everything for this country that we love. And to see her shoulders fell with relief. She listened to what I said and how I spoke from my heart to her heart. But I left really feeling discouraged, frankly, because I knew that there were countless others, millions of other people who were just like her, who believed this lie that was not only said by Hillary Clinton, but repeated by so many in the propaganda media, none of whom ever said, show us the evidence. This is a serious accusation. Show us the evidence, because if true, she should be punished under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which you know very well.
Right.
And at a minimum, chaptered out of the military, at a minimum.
This is what is so stunning to me, Tulsi. I'm watching what has happened to our nation from, let's just go back to 2016. I could go before that. I could go all the way back, but that would be getting too deep into the weeds. I think the changes that we've seen are so significant from 2016 on, because I think President Trump inadvertently, I don't think it was advertently, I think it was inadvertently, his election exposed the underbelly of Washington, D.C. I think it exposed them to the sense that they are mortified that he can return and that he will return this coming year. You know, I think that terrifies them. But what was so stunning to me was, and you talk about it quite a bit, was the fact that the Democratic Party had worked with the bureaucracy to basically taint a duly elected president of the United States, voted by the American people, to try to divert the American people away from their own will, utilizing the tools of the CIA. This is, to me, this is where this comes to task, utilizing the tools that we train our intelligence agents to use against adversaries overseas. They used against a sitting US president of the United States. And, you know, you speak about it very clearly in your book, but it goes far beyond just, you know, slanderous allegations.
That's right.
It's actually dangerous, and it is considered a use of deadly force when you make allegations like this against a foreign adversary. So you have to have a sign off from the executive branch to actually wage this kind of disinformation campaign against a world leader. They did it to their own. They did it. We did it to ourselves. That is what is so stunning. And it's still happening.
And like you said, what was done in 2016, we know a lot more about it now than we did back then, about how Hillary Clinton and her machine mobilized to try to destroy Donald Trump even before before he was elected president. And then, of course, it continued throughout his presidency, and it's continuing to this day in an even more brazen fashion that I really never thought I would see this kind of abuse of power in our own government in the United States of America. This brazen undermining of free speech, actually censoring voices in our country, actually undermining the rule of law. Weaponizing the Department of Justice, weaponizing our own national security state apparatus, both to go against Donald Trump. But I think it's important for Americans to also know, and I talk about this in my book as well, is Donald Trump is the most high profile target. Right. Because for them, he poses the greatest threat to their power. It's why they tried to destroy him in 2016. And it's why they're doing this now. It's no mistake that all of this started to occur once he announced that he was, or made clear that he was going to be running for president again in 2024. But they're also targeting everyday Americans whose names will never be in the headlines. No one will ever know their faces. But these are people who are, peaceful pro-life protesters. These are people who, the thousands who showed up on the lawn of the Capitol on January 6th. And what was their crime? Exercising their right to free speech as citizens in this country.
Which used to be a Democrat, which used to be part of what the Democrats said that they were protecting. And they celebrated this. Exactly.
That's, I go into the book, the details of these major reasons why I left the Democratic Party, and you'll see how each of those reasons, they don't have anything to do with partisan politics. They don't have anything to do with, well, this is what Republicans believe on this issue and Democrats believe on this issue. Every one of those has to do with freedom. It has to do with God. It has to do with family. It has to do with objective truth, the rule of law, our ability to live in a safe, secure, and peaceful country. These are things that are common and should be of common concern and shared interest to every single American, pointing to the responsibility that we have to recognize the threat, understand where it's coming from, and do our part to stop those abusing their power to destroy our country.
Yeah, we can't win our nation back unless we're willing to be an active part of this nation and an active part of the political process, because they work for us. Right. It's not the other way around. I want to play this clip and then we'll move on. But I want to play this clip and get your take on James Comey and what he said on MSNBC about Biden and President Trump.
Are you concerned that it may get a test unlike any other if Donald Trump is reelected? I mean, when you think about a second Trump administration, what do you think the implications would be for the FBI?
Oh, serious, for the Justice Department and the FBI, because Trump is coming for those institutions. He knows their power, and I think he has regrets that he didn't work hard enough to corrupt them last time. So he's coming for them, and that's a danger for all Americans. He's going to put people in positions in those organizations. He didn't have all-stars the last time. He'll have the bottom of the barrel this time, but people who will want to do his will, and that should worry every American. This election matters. Because of a reason like that, people have to participate. You cannot sit on the sideline. I don't care how you feel about Joe Biden, you must vote for him because the consequences on the other side are too severe.
I mean, coming from a former FBI director, I got a call from a friend of mine who left the FBI, retired early because of what was going on in there. And they were astonished that he even made this kind of statement publicly. This is not his place. What do you say to this? Is this part of the corruption that we're talking about?
He's using, yes, he is very clearly, and he has been. That much has been clear for quite some time. He's using the same tactic that the Democrat elite, the Biden-Harris administration, their friends in the mainstream media, they're all using the same thing, which is a very clear distraction tactic. What he is warning against that Trump will do, he says, to the FBI and the Department of Justice, they are already doing. And have already done. They've already corrupted these organizations and have weaponized them to go after their major political opponent, as well as those that President Biden has painted a target on their back as the quote unquote MAGA Republicans, saying these people are the greatest domestic threat to democracy, making it okay and acceptable for them to be targeted, whether by government institutions or law enforcement agencies or by everyday Americans, which is an incredibly dangerous thing. I think it's interesting that he said that he pointed out what Trump will do to the Department of Justice and the FBI, what he will do to these institutions, these powerful, he used the word, these powerful institutions. That's a warning. And it's much like the warning that Chuck Schumer made to Donald Trump on probably an MSNBC interview several years ago, when he said basically Donald Trump is so stupid. He doesn't know how powerful these agencies are. And if he did, then he would fall in line. That's a dangerous message, basically pointing to how these law enforcement agencies, these national security agencies, are somehow above the law and above the Constitution and above the duly elected president of the United States.
This is what's so terrifying, because it changes my, perspective on what our founding fathers had basically laid down as a foundation, principles that our nation should adhere to and live by. That's why we were kind of, noted throughout the world as being the shining beacon of light, that city of hope on a hill, where my mother came from Cuba. She fled communism in the 1960s. She came to this nation, loved this country. She's since passed away, but all she would teach me is how grateful she was to be a part of such a beautiful country where Lady Justice was blind, where she could give her children a future, even if she had to work in a factory, to do it. Freedom meant more to her and should mean more to all of us than anything. But I'm seeing a new generation, a generation of people, university students, American educated children that have been taught something completely different, that
Yes.
aren't fighting for freedom anymore. They appear to be okay to acquiesce to control, and they want leadership to basically be their family, not their community, not their personal family, but they want the government to do it for them. Have you seen that? Does that worry you at all about the direction the nation is taking? And I know you're a glass half full kind of person. So, I mean, do you see any kind of hope that this will shift and go in the other direction?
I am a glass half full kind of person, but I think the picture is even more bleak than what you're painting, where we're seeing more and more people not only willing to acquiesce their freedom in the name of a little security or a little comfort or a little promised facade of peace, which isn't really there. We're seeing a larger and increasing number of people questioning, well, why do we even need free speech anymore? And actively advocating for the end of free speech, saying that, well, I'm not willing to sit here and listen to anyone's speech that offends me. Or if you happen to say something that I think isn't true, I'm going to call you someone who is spreading misinformation or disinformation. I'm going to accuse you of trying to influence or manipulate our elections and then use the power of the government to silence you. This is where we are. And it's not only young people who are going through college and trying to figure out, well, what is which is happening? What is the relevance of free speech in America today? Maybe it's a relic of the past that no longer applies. And we live in a totally different world. These are the conversations that people are having, and that's okay. Let's have that conversation. And let's really talk about the importance of these foundational principles of freedom and why our founders put them in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And as we go through that conversation, we cannot allow those in power who swore an oath, like I did, both as a soldier and a member of Congress, to support and defend the Constitution, to so easily throw the Constitution in the trash just so that they can appoint themselves as the sole authority of who is allowed to speak freely and who the government, either directly or indirectly through big tech and the media and others, must be silenced. That's really the seriousness of the threat that we are facing.
You're absolutely right. And one of the biggest purveyors of disinformation, as we know, is governments. Governments
Yes.
push disinformation all the time. And that's not, to slander our government, but we know that. That's the reason why I, as a journalist, would travel to Afghanistan and go with our troops to the front lines and write those stories, because I wanted our troops to have a voice. I wanted the people to know what was actually happening on the ground and not just what Pentagon authorities said was happening on the ground. And we know that wasn't the case. And that brings me to my question about, President Biden. His foreign policy has been abysmal. I mean, we saw what he did in Afghanistan. I think that withdrawal set a domino effect across the board. It was the worst kind of action that he could have taken. I'm not saying leaving was wrong. I'm saying the way he left was wrong. And I don't know if you have anything to say about that, because looking at what's happened since then, I've just seen, especially tyrannical leaders and others, like we see with Vladimir Putin. We're seeing, North Korea, Iran, so emboldened under this administration. I would have never believed we would have been in the position we're in today just, 3 years ago.
Yeah, it was worse than an abject failure. The fact that in the wake of that failure that cost us American lives and a weakening of our own security, we saw no accountability. And so, there are a lot of issues bubbling up, or active wars and conflicts actively being waged in different parts of the world. We see the United States far less secure as a nation than it was before President Biden took office. We are closer to the brink of World War III and nuclear Armageddon than we have been, quite frankly, for some time. And we see this president and his Secretary of Defense and Secretary of State have no interest, really, they have no interest in exercising their diplomatic capabilities to pursue peace. Instead, again, putting us at greater and greater risk, and refusing to hold anyone accountable for these failures. And this is not something that's isolated to the Biden administration. This has been a growing problem within our Department of Defense for as long as I've served in the military. And I'm sure you and your husband, you've had front row seats and have lived this experience as well, is that military leaders over and over lied to Congress and lied to the American people about what was actually going on in Afghanistan. How many of them were forced out of the military? How many of them were reduced in rank? How many of them were fired? Absolutely none. How many of them were held to account, civilian or military, in the wake of that absolute disaster of a withdrawal from Afghanistan? Absolutely none. They sat there before Congress and basically pointed fingers in both directions, saying, hey, this was somebody else's fault. What to speak of our Secretary of Defense, who went AWOL. He went AWOL. He's the head of the military. He's a retired 4-star general. He knows better. But he felt like he was above the law, rules for thee and not for me. And this is indicative of the entire Biden-Harris administration, is they hold themselves to a different standard than everyone else, and they don't actually care. This is the problem. They don't actually care. It's not like they cared and they tried their best and they failed. They don't care. They don't care ultimately about our troops' well-being. They don't care about our security. And this is evident through their policies and their priorities of where they spend our taxpayer dollars.
Yeah, which is
they
why
care about power, and that's it.
You're absolutely right, which is why we saw over and over again, extraordinary failures. I would come back and report on it, and people would question me, well, but so-and-so said we're winning the war. And I'm like, well, I'm there. I saw it with my own eyes. I'm talking to the troops on the ground, and I'm telling you, we're not winning anything. We are perpetuating, this corruption, and people are pocketing a lot of money, and our men and women are doing everything they can to protect our nation, while the rest of everybody else is pocketing money and lying to the American public. Hey folks, Goldco. I talk to you about Goldco all the time. Why? Because we live in tumultuous times and we don't know what's going to happen. Are you concerned about the endless flood of illegal immigration at the southern border? How about the $1 trillion being added to the national debt every 100 days? It's no wonder thousands of hardworking, patriotic Americans, including myself, are learning how to protect and diversify their retirement savings with precious metals. That's why I've partnered with the top-rated company Goldco. Listen to this current offer. Get a free 2024 wealth protection kit and learn how to possibly get $10,000 in bonus silver as a listener of the show while supplies last. Protect your family's future and freedom. Get started today at Sara, S-A-R-A, likesgold.com or call 1-855-823-GOLD. Get your free gold kit from Goldco and learn how to get $10,000 in bonus silver. Sara, likesgold.com, S-A-R-A, likesgold.com or 855-823-4653. That's Sara, likesgold.com or call 855-823-GOLD. I have a few more questions. I know you have a heart out, but one question is President Biden, his health continues to deteriorate. It seems very unlikely he'll be able to complete a second term. Who knows? But as someone who destroyed, the Kamala Harris campaign in 2020, how dangerous would that be for America?
Extremely dangerous. There's no doubt in my mind that Kamala Harris being in a position as president and commander in chief would only further take everything we've experienced over these last 4 years and escalate it to a whole new level that would be hard for us to imagine today. I have no doubt in my mind that given her clear insecurity and weakness, she would try to exercise or present a position of strength by using our men and women in uniform and sending them into some new war in some other part of the world to quote unquote show strength. The things, everything that we've talked about under President Harris would be devastatingly worse, even though that's hard to imagine, should we, the people, allow that to occur. And I think this is the final message that I'll share with your viewers and your listeners, Sara, is as dark as times seem, as powerful as all of these forces of darkness appear to be with influence and money and political power and government power, our founders ensured that the power in this country is within the hands of the people.
Right.
But we are only powerful if we choose to use it. November 5th is our opportunity to save our country and defend freedom it's on us to make that happen.
I got to ask, just Anna, you can give 2 seconds to answer this. You're on a lot of short lists. President Trump has a lot of respect for you, and your name keeps popping up. What are you hearing? Would you accept if he asked? For Vice
President Trump, and only President Trump will make that decision. If I were asked to serve our country in that way, I would be honored to help him save our democracy and to prevent us, the American people, and the world from being destroyed by nuclear Armageddon.
Wow. Thank you so much. Tulsi Gabbard,
Sarah.
Thank you so much. We'll send people your way. Great to see you too. And a great success with your book. Folks, for love of country, get that book, be a part of the process. Remember, you are not alone. If anything this book teaches us is that we together can win back our nation and save not only our country, but the world. Thank you so much, Tulsi.
Great seeing you. Thank you.
Thanks again, Tulsi, for being on the Sara Carter Show. Folks, get this book. I love this book. I absolutely love it. Why? Because it tells us that we are not alone, that regardless of what party we belong to, we are all Americans. And fundamentally, we should all be fighting for our Constitution and for the future of this beautiful nation and the freedom, the symbolic freedom that it stands for. It is the reason why Tulsi Gabbard, my husband, so many others have served our country and have been willing to give everything to protect this nation. There is no place else on earth like the great United States of America. For love of country, leave the Democrat Party behind. Folks, you can do it. I can do it. We can do it together. Let's win our nation back. Please make sure you're subscribed to the Sara Carter Show on your favorite podcast app. It really helps us keep all these fantastic guests coming back and really gives us a boost in our algorithm. So just download the podcast. Wherever you listen to podcasts, I want to be able to bring great guests like Tulsi Gabbard. I got a great special for you coming up. Lou Elizondo will be back on with us. His book is coming out this year. I'm so excited. And remember, for all of you out there who don't know who he is, Lou Elizondo was the head of ATIP. He was the head of the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Program at the Pentagon. For layman's terms, UFOs. He has a phenomenal book that is coming out. We are going to have this show on Rumble, YouTube, everywhere you listen. So go ahead and give us a like and a follow there as well. Thank you again for being a part of the show. Follow me on Truth at Sara Carter Official, on X at Sara Carter DC, and on Instagram at SCarterDC. God bless you. God bless our great nation. God bless Tulsi Gabbard, and God bless the great state of Texas.